Check out all this raw clay I got. This is the more dirty stuff that's got like more dirt mixed in with it. But look, it's pretty close to fucking pure. I mean, look at that. It's a little bit more impure, but you can see the red clay right in there. And this is another type. This is more like bluish white clay. But this is one big chunk of pretty much pure clay, and that's what all these other ones are. A lot of these, I actually went and I just picked them right out of the ground. You see these red spots in the ground, you pick it up. This one is just a rock, actually. But you pick it up, it might be a rock, it might not be. And there you go. You get pieces of clay over here in Portugal, you know? This is another one. So you break it up. You can see the layers in there, you know? Really cool stuff. It's got sand, really nice, cool stuff. And this is the prized possession I got right here. This is some blue clay that got dug up. Really beautiful stuff. And look, this is like the real Minecraft clay ball thing, except instead of, there's a real blue Minecraft ball. Because yeah, they're blue in Minecraft. So this is the real shit right here. You know? You feel the smoothness of it. I'm keeping this stuff so I can make some nice pottery out of that. I mean, just look at that. Look how pure that is. I mean, what do I even need to filter out? Some rocks? That's about it. Just a few pebbles, like that one right there. Pebble. Really, really nice quality stuff right there. And then if you look over here, this is actually a big mushy, it's full. I put water in it, and I actually added some sand and some red clay, but that is actually this stuff, this blue clay, that like I said, I added some more sandy clay to it, and that's what that is, you know. So I can build something with that. I am thinking want to make a kiln. I want to make an earthenware kiln for the purpose of making my own earthenware, also known as what's it called, terracotta. So the difference between modern day pottery and earthenware is the temperature you heat it at. So modern day pottery is heated to a temperature so that it becomes glass. The clay melts into basically lava, except it doesn't turn into a liquid completely, or it does. It just doesn't fall apart into a puddle. You heat it to the temperature where the clay melts, bonds together, and becomes a glass, and that's a ceramic. Earthenware, and that's at the temperature of like 2,000, anywhere like 1,900 to 2,200 Celsius. So it's around 2,000 Celsius. Anything below 2,000 Celsius that you heat it to, which is what I'm gonna do in my kiln that I'm gonna make myself at home here, with rocks and clay. Anything below that is considered earthenware. That's what earthenware is. Earthenware is porous, which means that water is going to go through it, okay? So I can make shapes, and that's the way that people used to make pottery. But how am I gonna hold water in it? That's a good question. The way you hold water is, I'm just checking to make sure it's still running, is you actually make a glaze. Now you can heat earthenware. I'll probably be able to reach temperatures of 700 Celsius or 800 Celsius. And people used to make something called creamware, which is used with lead. Obviously, I want to be able to use them myself. So we can't be using lead because it's completely fucking toxic. So instead, I'm going to use probably tin. I'm gonna make a glaze with tin. Now, tin's melting point is like, I think it was like 212 or 240 Celsius. So I am easily going to be able to reach that point with my kiln, because my kiln should be able to get up to temperatures of 600, 700, 800 Celsius. So I'll be able to use a tin glaze to make my earthenware pots waterproof, and vases and whatnot, whatever I want to make. And I also want to make some bricks. Probably those are going to be the first things I make, are some bricks. Yeah. So instead of using wood to fire my kiln, I'm also going to be using charcoal. I'm going to make my own charcoal. So the first thing I build is probably going to be a fire pit with all these rocks I got. I'm going to make myself a fire pit, which I'm going to build in such a way so that it's easy for me to pour a bunch of sand on top of it and stop the oxygen from getting to it, so I can make charcoal. That's how you make charcoal. Making charcoal, all you do is you make a fire. You make sure that the wood you're burning is hot all the way through. It's hot all the way through, but it's not completely burned, right? And then you cut the oxygen out. Now you can cut the oxygen out by dousing it completely with water, which takes a lot of water, and it makes it wet, obviously. So you gotta wait for it to dry out to use it again. Or you use sand, which is the best way, I believe. So you heat up the wood, you chop it up. You want to cut it up into evenly sized pieces. I probably cut it up into pieces like that big, probably like a little smaller than the size of your hand, like the size of a fist. Probably the best thing would be to have pieces about the size of your fist. They can be long, or they can just be, you just want them to be that kind of width, I think. So once you get all that stuff to a high temperature, like you get it up to the temperature where it becomes coals, hot red coals, then you cut the oxygen. I'm going to be doing it with sand, but you can also use water. Then you just have to wait for the charcoal to dry out if you're going to use it in a fire application, or you can keep it wet if you're going to use it for paint, I suspect. I don't know why you would keep it wet, honestly. Even for paint, you're going to want to dry it out anyway. So the easiest way is with, basically what I'm saying is the easiest way to douse it is with sand. I actually have a shit ton of silt available to me right here. So I'll probably end up using this stuff instead, rather than buying some sand and using some dirtying some sand. I can just use this perfectly good silt, which has finer particles than sand, and it's kind of wet anyway. So theoretically, this stuff is going to be better for dousing a fire than larger particles of sand that I'm going to buy, because I'm buying particles of coarse sand. And the reason for that is the clay I have is very full of, the dirt I have is very full of clay. So it has such a high content of clay that I need to add sand to it to make it workable, to make it so I can grow plants in it reliably and get good harvests and all that stuff. You know, the soil here is just so full of clay that it's a pain in the ass to grow stuff, basically. So by buying a bunch of sand and mixing a lot of sand into it, basically whatever content of clay I have in the soil, I want to mix in that amount or even more sand than I have clay. So if I have, let's say, 20-30% clay and then another 10 or 20% silt in my soil, and then the rest of it would be, maybe 10% sand already, and then the rest of it, let's say, generously, that the rest of it is carbon organic material. Like pure compost doesn't have any silt, sand, clay, or anything like that because it's just organic matter. That's what makes soil black, is the organic matter in the soil, okay? So my soil has a lot of silt, which is like finer particles of sand, and then clay, which is in between sand and silt. So it goes sand of bigger particles, gravel is bigger than sand, obviously, then it goes sand, then it goes clay, and then smaller than that is silt. I think that's the order. I might be confusing the silt with the clay, but pretty sure clay is the smallest particle size. And what makes clay clay is the particle size and the type of mineral that is making up the clay. That's why you find clay by riverbeds and streams and where water flows, because it collects together into these places. As water flows, it'll stick together, like as the stream goes up with more water, and then it goes down as the water dries up. And as it's flowing, it'll collect by places on stream beds. So in places where you don't find much clay at all, you'll find some clay usually, even if you don't have almost any clay in your region. The place where you're going to find clay, if you find any, it's going to be near a stream bed for that reason, because that's where it can all collect, group together, and find a place for it. So yeah, that's an explanation of soil, that's an explanation of clay, that's an explanation of what I'm trying to do. So I gave you the percentages. So if I have 30% silt and clay in my soil and 10% sand, okay, then I need to add at least another 20% volume. I'm going by volume here. I need to add at least another 20% volume of sand to that soil to make it workable, to make it so the roots will be able to grow through, to make it so when it rains, it doesn't just erode away, and then when it dries out, it doesn't just harden up into a rock that, cracks and completely destroys the roots and fungus in it, You need the soil to be workable. You need the soil to have aeration, and that's the thing that silt and clay totally destroys, is the aeration and the permeability, the ability for the water to actually pass through the soil. That's what clay and silt stops, is the ability for the water and the air to actually get into the soil, and the oxygen to access the water in the soil, to access those lower, and also the roots. So when you have soil that's full of clay, in the water it turns to mud and it slips away and erodes, and then when it dries up, it turns into a fucking rock like this. I mean, look, this is clay, right? Literally, this is clay. It's a rock. Look how hard it is. That's because it's clay. Yeah, it has granules of sand in it, but this is void of organic matter. Trust me, this is all clay with just some sand in there. See, now I broke it open, and you can see all it is sand, silt, and clay. So if I sift this, then I'm going to get a product that is just clay, and it don't have the sand in it. But what this is perfect for is creating what I want to create. I'm going to add some sand to this that I'm going to collect myself. And once I add the sand to it and some rocks, this is going to be the perfect material, and some water, obviously. This is going to be the perfect material for me to create my own earthenware adobe kiln. Because once I add the sand to this, it'll soften up. Because if I just use something that's so heavy in clay like this, then once I dry it out and start to fire it, it's going to just crack apart. That's the issue. When you have something that has such a high amount of clay content like this and you don't have enough sand in there, if you have too much sand, it'll just fall apart and won't keep its structure. But if you have too much clay, then as you're heating it and as you're, using it as intended as a kiln, it's just going to fall apart, basically, So I'm going to take this silty material here, and I might be able to just mix it in as is, as silt, but it's better if I take this and wash it and come out with sand, and then with that sand, I can mix it with this, and I can make myself an adobe oven, kiln, furnace. That's what I'm going to do.